It's time for the news with me, Benedetta Chiwandamia, but first, the headlines. Stakeholders divided over chaotic scenes at Kamuzu Mausoleum in Lilongwe. Government urges institutions to sustain digital project. And in other news, UNFPA raises concern over limited access to sexual and reproductive health information. We have these and other stories. Please do stay with us. In our first story, stakeholders have expressed mixed reactions to chaotic scenes that unfolded on Thursday at Kamuzu Mausoleum in Lilongwe. Police fired tear gas at Malawi Congress Party supporters who wanted to lay wreaths at the mausoleum. The incident occurred after law enforcement officers stopped the supporters from carrying party flags into the mausoleum grounds. However, as Daniel Zimba reports, some stakeholders have raised concerns over the developments.
In separate statements issued on Thursday, the Information, Technology and Digitalization Minister Shadrack Namalomba and Homeland Security Peter Mukito described MCP officials' attempt to lay wreath on Kamuzu Banda's final resting place hours after the official government's similar event as unlawful. The ministers backed the manner in which police officers prevented MCP officials from accessing the mausoleum using tear gas. According to Namalomba, MCP officials were supposed to obtain permission from the relevant government officials before marching from its offices to the mausoleum, while Mukito called for political leaders to respect the rule of law. However, in reaction, MCP spokesperson Jesse Kabwira described the police conduct as an attempt to intimidate MCP, saying the party remains resolute and will continue defending the rights of Malawians. On the other hand, UTM and UDF presidents Daliso Kabambe and Adpele Muluzi, respectively, condemned the use of tear gas to chase away MCP members, including former state president Lazarus Chakwera. Kabambe then emphasized the need for political leaders to distinguish national from political affairs by prioritizing legal and non-partisan protocols when observing public commemorations for the sake of national unity in a democratic society. Despite backing the condemnations, Muluzi described the presidency as a national institution, arguing that any sitting or former head of state deserves dignity, recognition and respect in discharge of national duties. On the other hand, National Advocacy Platform chairperson Benedicto Kondowe also condemned the incident, asking Malawi Police Service to provide detailed accounts of what transpired. The incident comes amid separate Kamuzu Day commemorations by the government and the Malawi Congress Party, with MCP officials alleging that former President Chakwera was not invited to the official event, hence their separate arrangements.
Meanwhile, former President Lazarus Chakwera has urged Malawians to embrace unity and peace as they commemorate Kamuzu Day. He made the remarks on Thursday at the Malawi Congress Party headquarters in Lilongwe during the party's commemoration of the day. The MCP event followed the government's official ceremony earlier in the morning at Kamuzu Banda Mausoleum. Jimmy Shazama reports.
After government had a ceremony at Kamuzu Mausoleum in Lilongwe in the morning, the Malawi Congress Party later organized its own memorial service, saying their president Lazarus Chakwera had been denied attendance at the official event. Speaking during the event, the former leader says Kamuzu Day should remind Malawians of unity and peace. Chakwera says the country belongs to all its people and that conflict cannot build a nation.
Gata Malawi, tieni tisunge umodzi wathu. Chifukwa dzikoli sila munthu mmodzi, sila mtundu umodzi, sila chipembedzo chimodzi, sila chigawo chimodzi, koma dziko la tonse. Komanso si dziko la chipani chimodzi ayi. M'masiku angwazi zipani zina mmene timalandira ufulu wodzilamulira zidalipo. Padapita nthawi mpakana nkudzakhala chipani chimodzi. Ndipo zochitika mchipani chimodzimo zinali za Nkhani kufikiranso early 90s pamene amalawi adati tikhale ndi zipani zosiyanasiyana ndipo tikasunga mwambo wolelana wololelana wokhululukirana woyanjana woti tipite patsogolo limodzi chifukwa masomphenya athu ndi amodzi ndiye kuti ife tikhala anthu amene tili kumanga Malawi wakuti iwo amene sanabadwe lero akhoza kudzakondwera naye.
Earlier in the day, MCP Secretary General Richard Chimwendo Banda says the party will remain strong even if some of its leaders are arrested. Police later fired tear gas at MCP supporters who attempted to lay wreaths at Kamuzu's grave, saying the official wreath laying had already taken place.
Government has asked institutions benefiting from Digital Malawi Acceleration Project to take ownership and sustain the digital facilities to ensure the project achieves its intended goals. Minister of Information Technology and Digitalization, Shadrack Namalomba, made the remarks on Thursday as he concluded his inspection of the project's implementation in Zomba district. Daniel Zimba reports.
On Tuesday, the minister inspected the Digital Malawi Acceleration Project at the National Statistical Offices and its subsidiary, the Malawi Research and Education Network, at the University of Malawi in Zomba district. At UNIMA, Namalomba observed that accessing the internet remains a challenge due to weak signals, urging authorities to address the issue and include student innovations as part of the solution. He also emphasized the need for joint efforts in maximizing digital transformation, challenging development partners to support the government by establishing a national e-library to provide local academic content. Samson Sajidu is the Vice Chancellor of UNIMA.
The internet speed is there, as I've mentioned, is 1,500 Mbps, but now the actual signal, and we'll improve on that. The other exciting thing is that the minister seems to be passionate and agrees with us as management that indeed we should provide the internet even to the neighborhood, because most of our students are staying in the neighborhood.
On the other hand, Maren's Chief Executive Officer Solomon Dindi said that since its inception in 2018, the project has improved internet protocol and increased student internet bandwidth from 1 unit to 128 units per student against an international recommendation of 2,000 units per student in public higher learning institutions.
On average, for the education system, the average was 7 kilobits per second per student, or 7 units of internet per student. But that value has gone up. Today we are at around 128 units per student. Of course, we are way below the international average or expectation. The standard is at 2,000 units per student, and we have moved on from 7 to 128, and we expect we'll be able to hit a better mark, especially with the upcoming project under government called Digital Malawi Acceleration Project.
Under the Digital Malawi Acceleration Project, the government also allocated 30 computers and 5 printers to the National Statistical Office, which are reportedly aiding the ongoing establishment of a new website for the institution.
Some civil society organizations have challenged what they describe as distorted information about the country's economic situation. The organizations, led by concerned citizens of Malawi, told journalists in Blantyre that government has taken steps aimed at reviving the economy and that the efforts are beginning to positively affect citizens. Concerned citizens of Malawi Executive Director Edward Skambanje says inflation has eased compared to last year. One of the commentators, Mavuto Bamusi, explains.
So one conclusion that we are arriving at is that the Malawi economy is generating confidence, and that as civil societies we are developing confidence in the economic leadership of this country. And we know, as much as many do know, that there is a thin line between political leadership and economic leadership. So the politics and the economy go hand in hand. So there are a few things very important things that we have observed. Number one is the improvement in inflation. So the rate at which prices of goods and services were rising in the past 5 years is now different. Malawi presided over one of the highest levels of inflation between 2020 and 2025. So, for example, we have observed as a civil society that inflation was at 40%, and that was the food inflation, 40% between 2023 and 2024. This means that the prices of basic and essential commodities like food were rising at a very supersonic speed. So as a civil society, we highlight an example of the price of maize, which hit 100,000 kwacha between 2024 and 2025. But currently, comparatively, we observe that the price of maize has significantly reduced.
You're watching the news on TTV. We'll be right back.
From 11 June to 19 July, everything can wait. The FIFA World Cup 2026. Catch all 104 matches on 4 dedicated channels, only on Go TV.
Welcome back. Still on the news, the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, says access to information on sexual and reproductive health rights, as well as gender-based violence, remain a challenge in Malawi. UNFPA Deputy Representative and Officer in Charge Sabrina Pestelli said this during a national pitch competition held in Lilongwe. Pempero Malimba reports.
Pestelli observed that Malawi continues to record increased cases of early pregnancies and school dropouts, which cripple the future of many young Malawians. She said there's a need for Malawi to invest more to ensure access to relevant information on sexual, reproductive health and rights.
We know that if young people have education on sexual reproductive health and rights, they are not more prone to have early sex. They are just eventually delaying this age and making the right choice for their own. So I think more access to the information, and I guess if more can be done in terms of education.
During the event, a Chikwawa-based primary school teacher, Manes Kaombe, emerged as the winner of the competition and received 1.5 million kwacha, while Angela Chirwa Saidi came second and walked away with 1 million kwacha. Paul Matiasi came third and went away with 850,000 kwacha. Kaombe had this to say.
One thing which has moved me onto this competition is the part of innovation. Youth, they are always interested in what they already know, like songs, games, poems. So this one made me to be into this competition.
The competition was part of the UNFPA supported Empowered program being implemented in Mchinji, Chikwawa and Nkatabe.
National Commission for Science and Technology, NCST, has urged stakeholders to strengthen collaboration to ensure academic research in Malawi is transformed into commercially viable products capable of driving national development. NCST Acting Director of Technology Transfer, Isaac Chingota, made the remarks during a technology transfer seminar in Blantyre, hosted by the Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences, MUBAS. More in this report by Elwele Nimpasa, read by Sam Banda Jr.
Chingota said universities have a critical role to play in developing practical innovations that can create jobs, attract investment, and contribute meaningfully to economic growth in the country.
As National Commission for Science and Technology, one of our mandates is to regulate technology transfer in the country. So we do that, of course, by registering technology transfer offices. So right now we have, I would say, 3 of them that have been registered at MUBAS, Zuni and Luana. And we have 3 or 4 more that are in the pipeline from the other universities. In the 2 or 3 years that we have started this process, I think what we are seeing is one, greater awareness of issues around intellectual property. Number two, we're also seeing greater disclosures of inventions. I think for now, combined the two universities, Mobas and Zuni, over close to 40 inventions have been disclosed already from the universities.
Newbas University librarian Dr. Dorothy Enea says strong intellectual property frameworks within universities are essential in protecting local innovations while promoting entrepreneurship among researchers and students.
Universities are actually the home of innovations. That's where the innovations come from, and this kind of gathering, they will talk about how they can now turn the innovations into something that can make social impact. So we are moving from the laboratory, from the lecture halls, from the labs to the market.
The seminar brought together academics and innovation stakeholders under the theme Strengthening Malawian Universities' Innovation Ecosystems, from IP protection to commercial impact.
Young people have called on government to create a conducive environment for the private sector to play a greater role in job creation. The call was made during a joint interface between the National Youth Council of Malawi and youth leaders in Zuzu to discuss challenges facing young people and identify possible solutions. More in this report by Debola Madea, read by Feston Malegezo.
Executive Director of Malawian National Youth in Politics, Raimundo Makangani, said many young people are experiencing depression due to economic instability, among others. Makangani called for proper interventions from the government and the private sector that would propel young people to also be job creators.
To say the fact, that's the truth. That's the truth on the ground. So many youth are just working as volunteers because they have the passion for it. And most of the times they are not given that incentives that can motivate them in terms of maybe to cater for their resources. So most of them indeed they are working as on a voluntary basis.
NICOM Chief Executive Officer Rhoda Gadama Msomali said there are various programs aimed at addressing youth unemployment in the country. Msomali further said collaboration is a continuous process they are undertaking to ensure young people have a conducive environment for them to thrive.
In everything that NICOM is doing now, we are addressing the challenge of unemployment. So every program that we have, we want to make sure that at the end of that program, there will be job creation, to make sure that the youth are being taken care of. We are trying to reduce the unemployment rate by coming up with programs that will create jobs for the youth. They should be deliberate programs.
During the engagement, the youth further called for mentorship, counseling and rehabilitation programs as complementary measures to address mental health challenges among young people. Malawi Labour Force Survey of 2024 by the National Statistical Office, NSO, shows that 21.5% of youth are unemployed, with 97% of them in the informal sector.
And that's the news, but before we go, the headlines once again. Stakeholders divided over chaotic scenes at Kamuzu Mausoleum in Lilongwe. Government urges institutions to sustain digital project. And in other news, UNFPA raises concern over limited access to sexual and reproductive health information. You can access these and other stories on the Times Group Malawi website, the Malawi Times 360 Malawi Facebook page, and on Times 360 Malawi on X. You can also subscribe to 1895 simply by dialing star 1895 hash. I am Benedetta Chiwandamia. Good evening.